Welcome to another episode, where we explore the fascinating world of numismatics. Today, we're talking about something special, 3 seemingly ordinary US nickels that might be hiding in your change jar or old collection, yet could be worth thousands. The 1941, 1951, and 1970 Jefferson Nickels, ordinary dates at first glance, but containing varieties that drive collectors wild and command staggering premiums. Whether you've been collecting for decades or just inherited grandpa's old coin collection, these are the gems you need to know about. So grab your magnifying glass and let's start our hunt with perhaps the most legendary of the 3, the 1941 Jefferson nickel with a secret that changed American coinage forever. The year was 1941. The world was at war, and America stood on the precipice of joining that global conflict. But in the hallways of the U.S. Mint, another revolution was taking place, one involving metal. As Europe burned and Pacific tensions escalated, strategic metals became increasingly precious. Nickel, essential for armor plating and ammunition, was too valuable to waste on coins. The solution? Something unprecedented in American coinage, the creation of a silver-based alloy to replace the standard copper-nickel composition. What makes the 1941 Jefferson nickel so intriguing is that it represents the transition point, the final year of regular production before the famous war nickels began. But here's where collectors need to pay close attention. In late 1941, the Mint began experimenting with the new silver alloy composition, creating extremely rare prototypes. These experimental 1941 silver composition nickels weren't intended for circulation, but a small number escaped into the wild. How rare are we talking? Experts estimate fewer than 20 authenticated specimens exist today. The last one that appeared at auction in 2023 commanded a staggering $285,000 for a 5-cent coin. But identification requires extreme care. These transitional errors don't look dramatically different from standard 1941 nickels. The key is in the composition. Regular 1941 nickels contain 25% nickel and 75% copper, while these transitional rarities contain 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, the exact composition that would become standard for the war nickels from 1942 to 1945. The weight difference is slight, 5 grams for a standard nickel versus 5.1 grams for the silver composition variant. This subtle difference explains how these treasures have remained hidden for so long. Beyond weight, there's one more telltale sign. When examined under proper lighting, these transitional pieces often display a slightly warmer tone than their copper-nickel counterparts. But frankly, if you suspect you have one, professional authentication is essential. This isn't something you can reliably confirm at home. What's particularly fascinating about these 1,941 transitional nickels is they represent a desperate time in American history. The Mint wasn't just changing a coin's composition, they were preparing for a global conflict that would transform the nation. These coins are tangible artifacts of America on the eve of World War II, history you can hold in your hand. Now, even standard 1941 Jefferson nickels hold value beyond their silver cousins. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 200 million, while Denver contributed another 53 million, respectable numbers that make circulated examples worth just a few dollars. But in pristine, uncirculated condition, particularly MS 66 or higher on the Sheldon scale, values climb significantly. A perfect MS 67 example with full steps, showing complete detail on Monticello's steps on the reverse, can command $2,000 to $3,000. Speaking of those steps, they represent one of the key condition indicators for Jefferson nickels. The Monticello steps are usually the first area to show wear, and finding examples with complete step definition, what numismatists call full steps or FS, adds significant premium. For the 1941, full steps examples are particularly challenging to find from the Denver Mint. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the 1941 nickel is how it fits into the larger story of American coinage during wartime. Following this transitional year, the famous wartime silver nickels of 1942 to 1945 would feature a distinctive large mint mark above Monticello's dome, the only time in U.S. history where the mint mark appeared prominently in the central reverse design rather than tucked away near the edge. This dramatic change was intentional, a clear signal that these coins were of different composition. But the 1941 transitional piece shows no such obvious marking. It's a stealth rarity, indistinguishable to the casual eye from a common coin. This is precisely why they've occasionally turned up in dealers' junk boxes or ordinary collections, unrecognized for what they truly are. I'll share a remarkable story from 2018. A collector in Ohio purchased a roll of 1941 nickels for $10 at an estate sale, just an ordinary roll of old coins. When weighing them for silver content, a common practice to identify war nickels, he noticed one coin was slightly heavier. After professional authentication, it proved to be one of these transitional specimens, ultimately selling for $67,000. That's a return that makes the stock market look like a savings account. The psychological appeal of these coins is undeniable. Unlike many great rarities that cost tens of thousands even in their day, these 5-cent pieces pass through ordinary hands, possibly given as change at newsstands or diners. The idea that extraordinary treasure could hide in ordinary places fuels the passion that drives the hobby. For those looking to collect Jefferson Nickels more broadly, the 1941 represents an excellent starting point for a date set, with 3 mint varieties: Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. While common in circulated grades, pristine examples remain challenging, especially with full steps detail. When examining your 1941 nickels, pay close attention to the mint mark location, directly to the right of Monticello. The D or S should be clear and well defined. Weak mint marks are common and don't add value, but dramatically doubled mint marks, visible under magnification as 2 partially overlapping letters, can command significant premiums. Counterfeits are rarely a concern with 1941 nickels except for the transitional silver composition varieties, which have been targets for sophisticated forgeries. The most common method involves chemically altering the surface of regular nickels to approximate the appearance of the silver composition. Authentic examples will have consistent weight and metal composition throughout, so destructive edge tests aren't necessarily reliable. In terms of investment potential, even regular 1941 nickels have shown steady appreciation over decades when preserved in top conditions. While they may never deliver the breathtaking returns of their transitional counterparts, they represent an affordable entry point to a series with significant historical importance and collecting interest. As America entered World War II, these coins would become the last of their kind for years, the final regular composition 5-cent pieces until after the war ended in 1945. They represent America on the brink of transformation, a nation about to be forever changed by global conflict. Perhaps that historical significance explains why, even beyond the rare transitional pieces, collector interest in these coins has remained strong for generations. So check your collections, sort through those inheritance coins, and look carefully at your 1941 nickels. While the odds of finding a transitional silver composition example are admittedly slim, they're not zero, and sometimes the greatest treasures hide in the most ordinary places. And even if you don't strike the numismatic lottery, a high-grade 1941 Jefferson with sharp steps detail represents an important piece of American history worth preserving. Now, let's move on to our next numismatic wonder, the 1951 Jefferson nickel with a surprising double-die variety that had collectors doing double-takes for decades. Now, let's move on to our next numismatic wonder, the 1951 Jefferson nickel with a surprising double-die variety that had collectors doing double-takes for decades. The post-war years were a time of tremendous change in America. While the 1950s are often portrayed as an era of conformity and stability, the nation was actually transforming at a breathtaking pace. Suburbs were expanding, television was revolutionizing entertainment, and the Cold War was reshaping global politics. Amid this societal evolution, a small but significant numismatic drama was unfolding at the Philadelphia Mint. The 1951 Jefferson nickel seems unremarkable at first glance. Over 28 million were struck at Philadelphia alone, making it a common date that rarely commands more than face value in circulated condition. But hidden among these millions of ordinary nickels lurks one of the most dramatic double-die varieties in the Jefferson series, a coin that can be worth thousands of dollars even in moderately worn condition. For those who might be unfamiliar with the term, a double die occurs during the manufacturing process of the coin die itself, not during striking. When the hub impresses the design onto a die multiple times, and there's a slight rotation or movement between impressions, the resulting die shows doubling in the design elements. Every coin struck from that die will show identical doubling, creating a variety that fascinates collectors. The 1951 double die nickel shows dramatic doubling most visible in the date, mint mark area, and the words, 5 cents and e pluribus unum. Under even modest magnification, you'll see clear separation in the digits of the date, almost as if there are two dates layered slightly apart from each other. The effect is particularly prominent on the 1 and 9 in 1951, which appear to have shadows or echoes. What makes this variety particularly intriguing is how long it remained undiscovered. While double dies on Lincoln cents have been enthusiastically collected since the 1950s, this Jefferson nickel variety wasn't widely recognized until the 1980s, nearly 3 decades after it entered circulation. This late discovery means many examples were lost to commerce, making high-grade specimens particularly elusive. The first documented 1951 double die nickel sold at auction in 1987 for what seemed then like an astonishing $1,750. Today, even a moderately circulated example, VF20, can command $2,000 to $3,000, while pristine uncirculated specimens have fetched upwards of $25,000. In 2022, a perfect MS-67 example with full steps sold for a record $38,500, an extraordinary return for a 5-cent coin that someone likely received as change at some point. Finding one requires patience and a keen eye. While the doubling is significant enough to be visible without magnification if you know exactly what to look for, a 5x or 10x loop makes identification much easier. Focus on the date first. That's where the doubling is most obvious, then check 5 cents on the reverse, where the letters often show clear separation, particularly in the F and E. What's particularly fascinating about this variety is why it remained hidden for so long. The answer lies partly in collecting trends. Before the 1970s, most collectors focused on assembling date and mint mark sets, paying little attention to die varieties except for the most famous ones like the 1955 double die Lincoln cent Jefferson Nickels, in particular, were somewhat overlooked compared to more popular series like Lincoln cents or Morgan dollars. The story of the coin's discovery adds another layer of interest. As numismatic lore has it, the variety was first identified by a Baltimore transit worker who had developed the habit of checking his pocket change during lunch breaks. After spotting the unusual doubling, he showed it to a local coin dealer who initially dismissed it as post-mint damage or a novelty item. Only after consulting with specialists did the true nature of the find become apparent. This discovery story embodies what many find most appealing about numismatics, the democratic nature of the hobby. Great discoveries need not come from wealthy collectors or academics but can emerge from the pockets of ordinary people with extraordinary attention to detail. The 1951 double die also tells us something about mint production practices of the era. The early 1950s saw the mint rushing to meet growing coin demand as the post-war economy boomed. This production pressure likely led to quality control compromises, with obviously flawed dies being put into service rather than discarded. By studying these varieties, we gain insight into the practical realities of coin production during this pivotal period. Beyond its double die variety, the regular 1951 Jefferson nickel holds its own modest place in collecting circles. Produced at all three active mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the 1951 D is particularly valued for its above-average strike quality. While Philadelphia struck over 28 million and Denver produced nearly 21 million, San Francisco contributed just 7.7 million, making the 1951 S somewhat scarcer, especially in high grades with full steps. Speaking of full steps examples, this brings us to another fascinating aspect of Jefferson nickel collecting. The reverse design featuring Monticello contains either 5 or 6 steps, depending on how you count them, at the base of the building. Finding examples where these steps are fully defined, with complete horizontal lines without interruption, represents a significant condition rarity for many dates, including 1951. A 1951 S with full steps in mint state can command 10 times the price of an otherwise identical coin without this feature. The 1951 nickel also marks an important point in American economic history. Inflation had eroded the purchasing power of the nickel significantly since the Jefferson design was introduced in 1938. What bought a substantial candy bar in 1938 barely covered a small piece of gum by 1951. Yet the physical coin remained unchanged, a constant in an era of transformation. For those building Jefferson nickel collections, the 1951 represents a fascinating checkpoint. While not as historically significant as the wartime silver issues or as challenging as some of the early dates, it offers something perhaps more compelling: the thrill of the hunt. Every 1951 Philadelphia nickel deserves a second look, as the double die variety continues to be found in circulation and in unsearched rolls to this day. I recall a particularly memorable story from a coin show in Columbus about 5 years ago. An elderly gentleman brought in several rolls of 1950s nickels that had been stored in a basement safe since his father's passing decades earlier. Among them was a roll of 1951 Philadelphia nickels. When examined, 3 examples of the double die variety emerged, in nearly uncirculated condition. The combined value exceeded $50,000, transforming what he had considered a modest inheritance into a significant financial windfall. Condition plays a critical role in valuing these coins. Even for the double die variety, grade dramatically impacts value. A heavily worn example might bring $1,000 to $1,500, while a pristine MS-65 commands $15,000 or more. For regular 1951 nickels, the value spread is less dramatic but still significant, from face value for worn examples to several $100s for gem uncirculated coins with full steps. Authentication is particularly important with the 1951 double die. Because of its significant value, counterfeiters have created convincing fakes using various methods. Some simply alter the dates on common double dies from other years, while others use modern technology to create entirely fabricated pieces. Professional authentication through services like PCGS or NGC is essential before paying premium prices for any example. Now, let's fast forward nearly 2 decades to our final numismatic treasure, the 1970 Jefferson nickel that holds a secret only revealed through careful examination and an understanding of mint production changes that would transform American coinage forever.
Today, I'm excited to share a story about a coin that at first glance might seem unassuming in 1970 US, 1 dime, but holds layers of history, intrigue, and subtle craftsmanship that even seasoned collectors can appreciate. While many might dismiss coins from the modern era as merely everyday currency, this dime tells a tale of an evolving minting process, design refinement, and even a few mysterious quirks that have captured the imagination of collectors for decades. The 1970 dime emerged during a period of change in America, a time when the country was embracing modernity yet still clung to the symbolism of its past. This coin was minted at a crossroads of tradition and innovation. On one hand, it features the familiar and reassuring portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, a tribute to a leader whose legacy still resonates, while on the other, the coin's design elements reflect the technical progress made at the U.S. Mint during that era. This period saw enhancements in die production and quality control that helped to elevate even the most routinely produced coins into items worthy of close inspection. In many ways, the 1970 dime serves as a tangible reminder of the continuity between America's storied past and its dynamic future. Now, let's dive into the coin's identifying features. At a casual glance, you might notice Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse, rendered with a clarity that speaks to both artistic skill and the technical precision of modern minting. But if you take a closer look, you'll appreciate the delicate way in which the lines of his hair and the contours of his expression capture a moment in time. On the reverse, the design features a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. These elements aren't just decorative. They serve as subtle markers that help distinguish a genuine 1970 issue from its near-identical contemporaries. Pause here as we zoom in on the intricate detailing of the torch and branches, allowing you to appreciate the fine lines and meticulous engraving that define this coin's character. When it comes to market value and auction dynamics, the 1970 dime holds a surprisingly prominent place despite its age. While most coins of this era might only interest casual collectors or serve as nostalgic keepsakes, this particular dime has caught the eye of experts, especially in specimens that exhibit exceptional preservation. Over the past few years, rare 1970 dimes, especially those graded in the MS-65 range or higher, have seen a notable uptick in auction prices, sometimes fetching several $100s. There have been instances where pristine uncirculated coins have reached bids upwards of $500 to $600, driven largely by a combination of collector interest and the coin's unique backstory. Price trends tend to fluctuate with broader market sentiments, but seasoned collectors know that even a coin as modest in face value as this one can command a premium when it possesses that extra hint of rarity. Beyond the numbers, there are plenty of fascinating anecdotes and myths surrounding the 1970 dime. One enduring tale among collectors is the story of a particularly lucky specimen that was discovered in a long-forgotten drawer, its exceptional condition defying the expectations for a coin of its era. Rumor has it that this coin not only survived decades of handling, but was also misstruck in a subtle way, a tiny deviation in the die that few experts could detect until it was revealed under high magnification. Such stories add a layer of mystique, transforming what many might see as a routine piece of currency into a potential talisman imbued with serendipity and historical significance. Whether or not you believe in the power of such coincidences, the lore surrounding this dime enriches its legacy and makes it a favorite topic of conversation among veteran collectors. The coin's condition is a critical factor in determining its value. With any collectible, the grading scale can make or break its market price. For the 1970 dime, a coin in pristine condition, featuring sharp details, vibrant luster, and minimal signs of wear, can command a price that's significantly higher than one that shows even minor signs of circulation. Collectors pay close attention to factors such as the quality of the die strike, the clarity of the inscriptions, and even the presence of any minting quirks or errors that might either enhance or detract from its desirability. For instance, a coin that has been lightly cleaned might lose some of its natural patina, thereby reducing its authenticity and value. In contrast, a well-preserved specimen that has been carefully stored in its original holder will often be more highly prized. This emphasis on condition underscores why many experienced collectors invest in professional grading services before making a purchase, ensuring that the coin's true value is accurately recognized. For those of you considering adding a 1970 dime to your collection, a few practical tips can help you navigate the authentication and preservation process. First and foremost, always verify the coin's mint mark and design details using a trusted reference guide or by consulting with a reputable dealer. Pay close attention to the fine lines in Roosevelt's portrait and the distinct imagery on the reverse. Any discrepancies here could be a sign of an imitation or a misstrike variant. Investing in a quality magnifying glass or even a digital microscope can make a big difference when scrutinizing these details. Once you've authenticated your coin, proper storage is key. Use acid-free coin holders or albums and store them in a cool, dry environment to prevent the onset of tarnish or corrosion. Taking these steps not only protects your investment, but also ensures that the coin's historical and aesthetic integrity is maintained for future generations. It's also worth noting that the 1970 dime can sometimes be confused with other coins from the same era. Collectors might inadvertently mix it up with coins from adjacent years, such as the 1969 or 1971 issues, which are nearly identical in design. However, the subtle differences, be it in the mint marks, the quality of the die strikes, or even the slight variations in the reverse imagery, are what set the 1970 dime apart. By carefully comparing these nuances, you can ensure that you're holding a genuine 1970 specimen. Some collectors even go as far as to maintain side-by-side comparisons in their collections, using both magnification and detailed reference materials to highlight the distinctions that may otherwise go unnoticed. Another interesting facet of 1970 dime is how it fits into the broader narrative of U.S. coinage evolution. This coin represents a bridge between the classic designs of earlier eras and the more modern techniques that would come to define later issues. Its design choices, especially the reverse imagery, echo a time when symbolism was as important as monetary value. While today's coins might lean towards minimalist aesthetics, the 1970 dime reminds us that every element, every line, every curve was deliberately chosen to reflect national ideals. This historical context not only elevates its status among collectors, but also deepens our appreciation of how art and commerce have intersected in the world of numismatics. Reflecting on the journey of this 1970 dime, it's clear that its true value goes beyond the sum of its metal content. It is a piece of living history, a small yet potent symbol of the evolution of American currency. Whether you are a seasoned collector who has witnessed market fluctuations over decades or a passionate enthusiast just beginning to explore the rich tapestry of coin collecting, the 1970 dime offers a fascinating study in how even the most ordinary-looking objects can hold extraordinary stories. Each coin is a snapshot of its time, a reminder that history is not only found in grand monuments or sweeping narratives, but also in the everyday items that continue to circulate among us. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration of one of America's modest yet captivating coins. Until next time, keep your eyes sharp and your collections close, because history has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it.